Rec- Right now. So, Nora, welcome.
Hi, Kathy. Thanks for having
Hi.
me.
Yeah. So, I am so thrilled to welcome Nora McInerny to this In Conversation event. I followed Nora's podcast for many years and often found not only wisdom from Nora and the people she interviews, but ways to forgive myself for my flaws, which are many, of course, and take heart and inspiration to move forward again. Nora is an author, a speaker, and the host of Thanks for Asking, a podcast that lets people be honest about the hard things in life. She is also a remarried widow, raising a beautifully blended family with her current, very much alive husband. Nora talks frankly about her own chaos, inviting us to drop the facade of perfection and embrace the truth that we are all, at best, slightly unhinged. Her work centers around emotional honesty, embracing bad vibes, and the duality of being a happy-ish person in a hard world. So, Nora, first, how are you?
Today I'm really good. I'm slightly less chaotic than most Tuesdays, but I did, for everybody watching, I did have to text Kathy at 5:30 because I was not sure, are we on Mountain Standard Time? What is standard time? I don't know. I thought that my problems would be minimized moving to a state that doesn't do daylight savings. They have multiplied. I can't handle time zones. I can't handle time change.
No, I mean, we find we like not changing our clocks. We have to remember not to change anything. So,
Yeah, never change.
but other people get very confused. I find it
Yeah.
sort of interesting. And also, when you go onto the Navajo Nation or native lands, they do observe daylight savings time. So,
And
just
one thing I know is that people love talking about time zones and what time it could possibly be. So that's why I thought I could start off this conversation by really just getting into the most fascinating issues at hand, which is what time is it?
yeah, one time. Yeah. So I know you were hesitant about doing this event. I had to spend some time twisting your arm, but I'm very excited to show you how much we need to deal with the emotional toll this political and organizing work takes on all of us. So to sort of start at the beginning, can you talk about Feelings and Co. and how you got started?
Yeah, I got started doing work in media, which is what I do now, by accident. It was not my plan. I actually worked in advertising, marketing, public relations, all the banner ads that you don't want
Yeah.
to see. That was some of my best work, I have to say. And I probably would have stayed on that path, but my life changed really quickly when my soon to be husband was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer. And I could not keep what was happening to him, to us, to our life. I could not find a way to live through it without writing it. I don't know. I really should have this quote memorized, but I think it was Joan Didion who said that, I don't know how I feel about something until I write it. And that was true. So I started writing about our experience with him going through brain cancer. And this was a simpler time, everybody. This was a Tumblr blog. Okay. And when Aaron died, spoiler for my first book, I think he dies in the first chapter of that book. I uh, really could not go back to work for a lot of reasons. And I was kind of in a position where a lot of Americans find themselves, where, there's no real safety net to catch us unless we are privileged enough, as I was, to have one created for us and created to help catch me. And Aaron and I had written his obituary together, which is kind of unusual. People typically wait until a person is dead, but we wrote it together before he died. And I said this was a simpler time. This was a simpler time. We were all in one algorithm, and his obituary went viral. And there was a reason for that. It's because we revealed his true identity as Spider-Man. And from there, really my entire life changed in more than one way. I didn't have a job to go back to. I had stopped going. So they wanted to stop paying me, which felt unfair to me. I wanted to get paid. I just couldn't go to work because I was simply too sad. But his obituary going viral was really what started everything, because I started to hear, Kathy, from people from all over the world who were going through something maybe similar, maybe very different. Maybe they were in it. Maybe they had gone through it years before or decades before, and they were reaching out to me through email or a DM or a Facebook message to tell me that I wasn't alone, and then to also tell me their story, maybe because the people around them had sort of figured that they had moved on and it didn't matter anymore, or maybe because the people around them had never asked, had never, had been how I was before it happened to me, which was afraid to talk about something difficult in case it made someone sad. So that's what all of my work really has sprung from, and what it centers around is giving people the space to talk about how it really feels to be a person in this world. Mm-hmm. And it's not work I would have come to if my own world hadn't fallen apart.
Mm-hmm. So I am utterly fascinated by personal journeys, and so the next stage of your journey was you had some tools to deal with it. You were sort of, it sounds like you were, grasping for, what's next. So dealing with tragedy and challenge is so hard, obviously. How did you find your way forward at that point?
Really
What?
clumsily, really
Yeah.
clumsily. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of my work is an act of passive aggression. I'm originally from Minnesota, so that's my first language, is passive aggression. And I had for a long time walked through the world with a lot of pity. Bad things happen to other people, and I feel really bad for them, but I can't look too closely at it. I had a hard time feeling empathy, because empathy is a little bit more work. You have to think, you have to see somebody, not just what they're going through, but why they are going through it. And once you are other people, it's kind of all you can see. And so when I knew that, regardless, I was going to be okay-ish, right? I moved in with my mom, who I think is on the call right now. Thank you, Margaret, for allowing me to be your roommate. I wasn't good at it the first 18 years. I certainly wasn't a treat at age 31 with a toddler, but we got through it. I would always have something to catch me. But I was, I don't know, enraged maybe. I was activated by the fact that most people don't have that. I would go through GoFundMe's in the middle of the night, paying for people's headstones anonymously, or just, like seeing all this need and knowing that so many people in the US, in a very, very wealthy country, in a country where, we should all have enough, don't have $400 for an emergency. And you've been through an emergency, Kathy. Are they ever $400? $400 might be the first payment for an emergency. So I would say that a lot of my work has been trying to get people who are in the place that I was, right? We're like, oh, things happen, but like, oh, I don't really want to look at it, to kind of force people to look at it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Did you have people giving you just the worst advice?
Yeah, all the time, all the time. And I think about myself, and I'm sure I gave people horrible advice. I still give people bad advice. All right. I give people advice when they don't ask for it, which is the worst kind of advice. Unless somebody says, I'd really like your advice, shut up. But, I had a ton of people whose husbands were still alive telling me how I should move forward, or, really move on, right? How I should get over this, or what I should do, or don't make any decisions for a year. When you are a lone parent, not a single parent, and a lone parent, there's no other parent around. Your life is filled with decisions that have to be made. You have to figure out where you are going to live. You have to figure out what you are going to do for work to provide a life for this child. There are a lot of decisions that have to be made, and people love to tell me not to make any decisions. I made a lot of decisions. They weren't all great ones, but they were mine.
One of the things that really fascinates me is on your podcast over the years, you have dealt with so many different types of grief, loss, challenge, what people go through, as you say, the hard things in life. And you have defined that so very broadly. And that is utterly fascinating to me because there are so many common threads in the differences, between
Yeah.
for what people go through. So what is it like for you to be connecting with people, listening to their stories, drawing them out, and really getting to a point that it feels like they have come through it for the most
Yeah.
part, but people never are through, you know?
Yeah. Or they're through, but it's still, you still keep some residue on you. And I think that's a good thing. But whether or not I ever had a podcast, and there's no sort of secret to my success other than I was in the right place at the right time. It was 2015 when I started making it. There were only maybe 10,000 podcasts in the world. I made it through public media, which was really, kind of the people who were making most of the podcasts at the time anyways. And whether or not I ever had a podcast, I would always find a way to do a version of what I'm doing, even if it's just me and the girl at Dutch Bros taking my order. I can't help it. I was raised by a yapper. She was raised by a yapper. My grandpa Bill, may he rest in peace. I was horrified at the way that he would speak to anybody who crossed his path as a child, and now I realize I am Uncle Bill. I want to know your life story, even if you really only wanted to know what I wanted to order while the line is building behind us at the coffee drive-through.
Mhm. Yeah, right.
But
So
that's because I think everyone is interesting, Kathy. I think
yeah,
everyone is interesting, and I intentionally defined the podcast as like the hard things in life and not just like grief, because people believe that grief equals death. But if you are struggling over the past, I can't anyone else in Arizona not know what month it is because the sky looks the same every day. I'm like, I don't know, could it be? If you told me it was Christmas tomorrow, I would believe you. I would say, oh no, I simply forgot. But if 6 weeks, how long has this presidency been going on? 800 years? Who knows? But if you are feeling, there are a lot of things to grieve in the world, not just the death of a person that you love. And that was always important to me as we made the show and iterated on the show too, is that everybody's interesting, everybody has a story, and we don't have to weigh and compare terrible things in the world. There are many, and nobody is going to win the Bummer Olympics.
yeah, that's very true. Yeah, one thing that I have found also is that I can get interested in anything.
Yeah.
Anything. I can't remember if I mentioned to you, I worked at PetSmart for many years, and I one of my categories was cat litter. And I can tell you so many things about cat litter. It is fascinating. So,
And I believe you. Okay.
yeah,
I believe you. You get me down any rabbit hole, I'll stay there.
yeah, right. So talk a little bit about I mean, you have done dozens, hundreds of interviews, and um, I have to believe you are learning from them as well
Yeah.
as us learning, so as we listen. So can you talk a bit about what that process is like and what some of those pieces of wisdom are that you've taken away from your interviews?
Yeah. I feel like I can learn something from any conversation, but there are certain ones that stay with me, that I think about a lot and kind of at unexpected times. And I was thinking about an episode today because I put out an episode about self-care, the most commodified version of just self-compassion that there could ever be, right? But get some products at Sephora, Go treat yourself to something, when really self-care is about uh, the choices that we make to honor and protect and nourish ourselves in a world that is deeply uncaring. And I learned that from an interview I did with a woman named Sarah Super. She is uh, a survivor of a very, very violent sexual assault. And she was the first person I heard say, there's not going to be enough bubble baths or kale salad to heal some things in life. Like there's not enough. And there's what I've what she was getting at truly is like the responsibility that our country places on the individual to be okay. So we love a winner. We love when the setback is a setup for a comeback, which is for some reason on every poster in every gym teacher's office. Why do gym teachers have offices? These are the questions that I would really like to answer at some point in my life. But there's so much responsibility on a person to be okay, and not enough focus on what we need from our community and what we need from our country and what we need from the people and the systems around us to be okay. So we throw around the word resilient a lot. People are resilient, tires are resilient, goldfish are resilient, when really resilience is not necessarily an inside job. Your resilience is a reflection of the strength of your connections. When people called me resilient after losing my husband, who died right after my dad did. Rude, rude of my dad, by the way. He was supposed to be alive. And my dad died, right after I had a miscarriage, which that was also wasn't supposed to happen. All of these things, and people would tell me I was so resilient, and really, I just had connection. I had a strength of community who had resources to make sure that I would be okay. It was not. I was not personally resilient. I'm actually very personally averse to hardship. Okay, I never would have. The wind blew my hair into my eyeball today, and you would have thought it was the biggest crisis I've ever faced in my life. It right parallel into my eye.
Huh.
Like
I love that you talked about community and connections. And that is something that means a lot to CEBV. Well, obviously to each of us individually, but to our group, because being disconnected makes you feel I am the only person who feels this way.
yeah,
And it just makes it so crushing to feel that you are carrying that whole burden by yourself.
yeah.
Um,
Kathy, I'm glad you brought that up. I have a book recommendation for everybody on this call. If you're interested in a book that came out recently, should be at the library, but if not, I do think it's worth buying. And it's called Start Making Sense: How Existential Psychology Can Help Us Build and Lead Meaningful Lives. It's by Stephen Heine, Heine. I devoured this book, but he's essentially saying in it what you are saying, which is like one of the things that makes life meaningful or can help us find meaning, cultivate meaning, sort of hold on to our sanity in trying times, is community, and is having a group of people who are interested in taking action and doing things, taking action, even small actions, um, for a greater good. He mentioned in the book that the original age of anxiety, and I'm sure other people know this, but it was news to me. The original age of anxiety was, after World War II, we come out of the Depression, we go into World War II. This is when existential philosophy sort of blooms. People are like, what does it all mean? And he calls what we are living through now the second age of anxiety. Like the same sort of dissonance between, our our happiness, our survival, all that is paralleled with that original age of anxiety. And so I think what you are doing here at CEBV, and what you do in your regular meetings and in getting people signed up and taking action, really is sort of the antidote to these anxious times and these existentially exhausting times.
Oh my God, you couldn't have queued me up better. So in the type of community work that many of us do with CEBV, we search for ways to connect with other people and help them take an action on a cause or an issue that is meaningful to them, that they care about. So you shared, for example, that you called your congressman, David Schweikert, and you had a lovely conversation with somebody in his office. So, was it hard to take that step? And remember Ned in Groundhog Day? It's like, watch out
Yeah.
for the first step. It's a doozy. The first step is always the hardest. And we are trying to help people sort of get over that first step so they can take an action that will actually help their feeling of empowerment.
Yeah, I don't, that wasn't perhaps like my first step. It was a first recent step. I'd never called him. And once I did it, I was almost embarrassed at how easy it was. But like any task, I have initiation anxiety. I have a hard time just doing a task, Kathy, truly. Like, and I think there's probably plenty of people on this call who are like that too, where it's like, this is, won't show you my to-do list, but there are things on this to-do list that have been on this to-do list that just simply move from one page of the legal pad to the next every day as I rewrite it that will take me under 2 minutes. I could just do them. And calling his office was one of those things. Do I think that they will continue to? I think they're probably filtering all my emails to the garbage, and that's okay. Um, but no, it's like once you do something, or once I do something, I feel like, oh, I could do anything. Same, any hard conversation, I'll dread it. And then once I have one, I'm like, line them up. Let's keep going. Who do I need to call today?
Mhm.
Who do I need to get into it with?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a friend who always says one way to start the day, she says, first thing, worst thing. So,
Oh, I'm writing that down.
yeah. And I've tried to do it from time to time. I'm really terrible at it, but it is very nice to get that one thing you're sort of dreading out of the way.
Yeah,
So,
I think it was always hard, the the phone call thing too. Several people have DM'd me on Instagram and been like, well, what's the point? Like, what's the point? I'm not going to change his mind. And I simply didn't know. I was like, well, it's better than doing nothing, I guess.
mhm. Yeah, and this is where it's always, what do they say? What have I've heard people say the power of the many is bigger than the power of money. So
Mm,
I always like to think of that. It's sort of it always requires a critical mass to get to a point where it does become persuasive. I mean, I sort of collect aphorisms, and it's like first they laugh at you, then they try to make you go away, and then they do what you want. So
yeah,
it is a progression, and keeping people in for the long haul is always a huge challenge. But I
yeah.
mean, we do obsess about that first step, and the courage, true courage that it takes. I mean, we tell people if you want to call your congressman or your representative, do it at night or on a weekend when you know nobody will
Mm,
answer the phone. And then
yeah,
you just get to leave a message. You've done your work, but it is truly not as hard to talk to
yeah,
or talk to their assistants, really.
yeah. I
So
know. I was like, who am I talking to? Like
yeah.
am I talking to a 20-year-old? Am I talking to someone younger than my son? Like, which
Yes.
honestly like made me nicer because I was like, you're someone's baby. I got to be nice to you.
Yeah, well, you got a lot farther when you are. So to sort of get into the like the meat of what the reason I thought that you would be so great for our community is that doing this work and running for office, which some of our people have done, means putting yourself out there on the longest series of first dates ever because you are knocking doors, you are going to events, you're talking to new people, and every single person you are trying to convince that person to embark on a long-term relationship with you. So it is very, and you have to do it in like 2 minutes. So it is really speed dating. So what what recommendations do you have for like just sort of getting through? It's very grueling.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah. For speed dating recommendations or just just the grind of trying to do anything in this
Well,
world.
yeah, all of that, I guess I would
Yeah.
say, how do you make an impression quickly? But also it is very grueling. So,
Yeah. I'm the worst at dating. I don't have an elevator pitch. You asked me the first question you asked me today, I was stumped by what do I do? I don't know. Okay. My elevator pitch, we're getting in the Willy Wonka elevator. We don't know where we're going, but we know your impoverished uncle and grandpa who share a bed, their lives hang in the balance. And maybe we're going to go somewhere fun and maybe we're not. So I should not give anybody advice on how to date or how to sell themselves because I'm bad at both of those things. But I am good at sticking with something whether or not it's working. Like, and doing something just because I want to do it. I wrote for 10, 15, since the internet existed, I was on there writing, putting my thoughts out there, existing on the internet before anybody cared. Most people, most of the things that I wrote, no, not one single person read at all. Um, Maybe sometimes I would look and I would have like 6 hits on my blog, and it would all be me like checking it from work. Like so, like I if you want to do something, the only person who cares whether or not you do it is you. Kate Bear is a poet who I love, and she said that about writing. No one cares if you write except you. So do it or don't do it. Nobody cares if you are going to, you know, go for something, try for something except you. So go do it.
mhm. Yeah, and what about sort of endurance? It is because a lot of what we do, it's as you said, with
Yeah.
calling your representative once it will may make you feel good, but it's that persistence, it's that sticking with it that really is such a challenge.
Yeah. One is I have to tell myself all the time, I can do anything. I really can. I simply could do anything. I can't do everything. And um, I also, especially when the podcast was, um, the first iteration of the podcast for people who may not know it, now it's called Thanks for Asking. It's a call-in show about whatever matters to you. It used to be called Terrible. Thanks for Asking. And the stories were really, really heavy. And we were talking about things that are very deeply important, not just to the person who's living through them, but to the world. These are very personal. Every story is personal. Every story is universal. In those years, and even to this day, I can't consume any media. I don't watch any media that is stressful, gory. If I'm going to watch a heist movie, I look up how it ends. Okay, even though you know heist movie, they're going to get away with it. Doesn't matter. Can't handle suspense. Can't handle like watching anything traumatic. I'm not watching anything with zombies in it, for example. Right? I'm not watching Station 11. Sorry, heard it's beautiful. Not going to watch it. I have to like feed myself light junk food. That's the only media that I consume is silliness because real life and work are often very heavy. So I am going to rewatch uh, old seasons of Real Housewives of New York, which I also learned from that book I mentioned, Start Making Sense, that when you feel adrift, when you feel overwhelmed, nostalgia is actually a tool for connecting to your past self and like pulling that thread of meaning through your life. So there's a reason why you want to go watch, old episodes of Friends because, it reminds you of a different time in your life where things were different, where, the government wasn't being hijacked by an unelected billionaire.
Mhm. That is fascinating. I've always said I have a nostalgic streak a mile wide.
That's why.
Yeah.
That's your meaning button that you get to push.
Oh, I love that. Well, now I feel
Yeah.
better about it. I always thought
Yeah.
something sort of private, to
Yeah.
be. Um, so the sort of the corollary to, and again, I sort of come back to running for office because I know a lot of people who have done it. Not only is the work incredibly grueling, but then they have to face winning or losing. So
Yeah.
all of those people that you have asked out on dates, you are asking them to vote for you, and when they don't, I it's hard for me to imagine any more personal rejection, personal and public, which
Yeah.
what could be more challenging than that? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Um, but I would say I wouldn't take that personally. Like somebody told me a long time ago, it's not personal if they don't know you personally. These are not people who know you personally. These are people who met you for 2 minutes. And I think a lot of people, when they get their ballot, they're like, God, what was I? Oh, what was I? Who was I going to vote for? Who was it? Who was it? Like, so, I mean, but I would take it personally. I take everything personally. Are you kidding me? If I lost public office and people had to know that, like most of my losses I've taken quietly, privately. Um, but I do think a healthy amount of sort of delusional perspective is good. I didn't really know I had this until I found a journal from fourth grade where I recapped a basketball game and I said it was a good game. We lost 54-2. And I said it was a good game. 54-2. And I was like, it was a great game. What the scoreboard doesn't tell you, we played great.
yeah. Well, you had fun, hopefully.
Okay.
That
54 to 2.
actually, that can be a lot healthier than taking it too seriously.
Yeah.
Um, well, then, as if that isn't enough for some of the people I know personally, they pick themselves up and they decide to do it again
Mm.
and keep going. So, what gives people the grit, I guess, to finally, and I don't even know, I've never run for office, I never will. But getting through that rejection, that feeling of defeat and failure, and then working through that enough to say, yes, I'm up for doing that again.
Isn't that so
Um,
cool?
yeah.
That's so cool. Anyone who does that is so cool. I think it's such a cool thing to put yourself out there for anything. Like, I think just we have to celebrate more amongst each other, like the effort, not the outcome. And I had a mentor in, one branch of my career as a self-employed person. I have many, and I was adapting my first book into a screenplay. And the producer who had, she'd won an Oscar. Like she was like a real screenwriter. And she said, like, you have to celebrate every part of the process because you have no control over the outcome. And I have tried to do that, like celebrating finishing a draft of something, celebrating, you know, submitting something, celebrating even like a rejection because like a no from somebody is just more information. It's just like helping me find the person who wants to do this project or wants to publish this book. And it was something I learned from my mother, was that as long as nobody dies, like and you didn't fail, right? Like that's the standard for something going wrong in our household was like at least nobody died. Like, oh well, like you tried something, it didn't work. Did someone die? No, you're okay. And you could raise or lower that bar to whatever standard you feel comfortable with. But um, I really do think it's such an incredible thing when people try anything and include, especially maybe running for office.
Mhm. Well, trying anything. I mean, we try to get people to push the envelope, and that is tough. That is really hard. We have a lot of people you know, who come to our events, but when it comes to doing something in the real world, it's really hard. And I totally
Yeah.
recognize that because it was incredibly hard for me. And, I've been to the legislature in Arizona. I have testified in committee. I still shake like a leaf.
Yeah.
So how do you push yourself into areas that you may not feel comfortable with?
I'm going to say something insane. But I mean, first of all, I already did. I did something on Saturday that I hadn't done, and I spoke at a city council meeting. They were doing a budget hearing where you could comment on the city budget, and I went there with a group called Take Back Our Homes, which is the tenants' rights organization, very grassroots here in Phoenix. And I'm not a renter, but I believe that housing is a human right. So I went. I showed up. I did not know anybody. I was nervous about that. I was like, I don't know anybody. Everybody else seems like they know it. They're like, do you want to talk? I was like, I don't know. Like, what do you want me to, like, sure, maybe. I did it. I was more nervous walking up there than I was before I gave a TED talk. Like I was so nervous. I was so nervous. And my my voice was weird. It's on YouTube. Go find it. Like I don't like, and you only have 2 minutes. A clock is ticking.
Right.
Um, but it's like once you do it, like you can just do it. And I don't think that's good advice, except for this, which is whenever I'm nervous about a situation, speaking at the legislature, right? Like I truly, I don't know if I should say this, if you're going to put this, I already put this out in public, so I don't care. It's the only thing that's ever helped me is I have to remember that every person, no matter how powerful they look, no matter how cool they look, no matter how put together they look, every single person has had explosive diarrhea at some point. Every person has been like clinging to the toilet, like praying, like just holding on for dear life. And like when you like really think of that, like you're not nervous in front of people anymore. Like you're just like, oh, this is a bunch of people who, probably had maybe pooped their pants as adults. Like it happened. So, you know, what what's the worst that could happen? And
Yeah.
that works for me. So
Yeah, we have one of our youth fellows. Part of our assignment in our youth fellowship is to have our youth fellows, and they're anywhere from 16 to 22. They have to go to a public meeting and stand up and talk. And
yeah,
one of them said, "Oh, I imagine the audience is all bunny rabbits." You know.
that's so
So,
cute. That's so cute. Yeah,
yeah.
and like I would have been so afraid to do that. Like I couldn't speak in front of like my own peers and like present my own ideas at the office that I worked on with like people I saw every day. If I had to like stand up and say it, I suddenly couldn't do it. So I understand that, like that physical reaction to it. And then, you know, and then you do it and you're like, wow, no one yelled at me, no one laughed at me, no one, I didn't explode. I might have stuttered a little bit and spoken a little too quickly, but I got through it.
Mhm. And will it be easier to do next time?
Maybe you'll forget and you'll have to start all over.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I swear the last time I testified down at the Capitol, I was more nervous than the first time. So,
yeah, I don't know why. Because you're just like, I don't,
no,
is this what I do? Like,
yeah. So,
yeah,
I mean, part of that process is also sort of forgiving yourself and saying, as you say, what is the worst that could happen? But it's also
yeah,
instead of berating yourself, and saying, I must sound like such an idiot, you have
yeah,
to find a way to, um, I don't know, make that voice stop. And you've talked a lot about that. So what are some techniques to make that voice in your head go away?
yeah. That voice in your head is usually so dumb. And if you talk to any stranger that way, like you would get punched in the face and you would deserve it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think all the time about how, I have kids, but you don't have to have kids to feel this way. Like you can think of yourself as a kid. Would you say that to her? Would you say that to little Kathy if she tried something, No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't want anybody thinking that way about themselves. And why is it always like the people who think that way about themselves shouldn't? But then there are people like Elon Musk who are like, I don't think he has that feeling ever. And I think he should. I think he should have the voice in my head. um, and I should have a completely different voice. But that's just something that I have to consciously train myself out of every day because I do skew a little towards like the like thinking poorly about myself, and it's embarrassing. And what I've also started uh, to really think about is like it's kind of an insult to other people. It's an insult to uh, somebody else's taste if they say like, oh, like you should come and speak, and I'm like, no, Kathy, you don't want me to speak, I'm actually an idiot, like that's insulting you, that's insulting your taste. Kathy's a smart person with good taste, so if she invites me to speak to this group of strangers on a Zoom on a Tuesday night, like I should believe her that this is okay for me to do.
Mhm. And you know what, sort of a continuation of those thoughts is, I mean, throughout our whole conversation, we've been talking about techniques and, ways we deal with some of these unpleasant or even destructive emotions. So, what it brings to mind is that it's a continuous process. You never get to the point where that voice goes away or you have conquered your concerns or your imposter syndrome, which so many of us have, particularly women. So I think that that means a lot to me because people struggle with their emotions and they beat themselves up for feeling that way.
Yeah.
But, realizing that you will always probably struggle with with that voice in your head.
Yeah. And even like, one of my favorite uh, thinkers, researchers is the psychologist Susan David. And she wrote a book called Emotional Agility, which is a really wonderful book. And it's a good book for adults. It's a good book for adults to read and think about, like if you have kids in your life too. Like these are things that had we known them as children, maybe our lives would have been different. But she says that feelings are data, like your emotions are data. They are telling you what is important to you and they are tugging on your values. So if you feel a lot of anger right now, like trace that back. That's because you value fairness. That's because you value uh, the Constitution, whatever it is. Like, you can trace that feeling back to a value. Your values are either being violated, your values are being crossed, or your values are being fortified by and the feeling is data pointing to that. And I think that's been helpful for me too. Like, am I really mad right now, or am I sad about something? If you don't have a feelings wheel, I also think every adult should have a feelings wheel. It will give you more vocabulary for your feelings. Um, but yeah, your feelings are telling you something.
Mhm. Yeah, what is a feelings wheel? I'm not familiar with.
Ooh, so you know, um, it's a wheel. It looks like a color wheel almost. And so there are sort of primary feelings like, and I'm not using the correct vocabulary, right? But it's like happy, sad, angry, and then that branches off into other like more granular feelings that you can identify, because anger is a big one, right? But are you really angry, or are you feeling betrayed? Are you feeling um are you sad, or are you really just feeling like envious? Somebody linked it in the chat, and you can buy one. I have one like on a wall, not this wall. I have everything else on this wall. But I keep that around too, because you'll use the biggest word when a more specific word might be more accurate.
Mhm. That's great. I will definitely look for that. So you did touch on yet another feeling that I wanted to get into, which is anger, fury. If you think about all the stages of grief that we might be going
Yeah.
through since the election, I think many of us are in a state of rage right now. I think we've
Yeah.
worked through, curling up in a fetal position and then finally sort of tentatively going out into the world and so I think we've worked our way into a ton of anger
Mm.
about what's going on either politically or in our society. So what do we do with that fury? Some people, I've seen so many people who are just sort of incandescently angry at things they have no control over.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that?
Yeah. I think anger is righteous. I think anger is holy. And I think anger can be used for destruction. It can be used to build things as well, you know? And I am trying to budget my anger. So rather than feeling angry at every individual, and this is just my personal approach, right? I don't want to spend the amount of time that I spent from 2016 to 2020, January 2021, uh, nitpicking and like sparring with and sniping at people who are at my eye level, right? We all have more in common with each other um, down here at the bottom. We are all more likely to be a person pushing a shopping cart full of our belongings than we are to be a billionaire sending his girlfriend into space in full glam. Our common enemy, our anger should be budgeted a little higher, a little higher. And I'm not saying that that for anybody but really myself. It feels like the most productive use of that feeling for me is to try not to rage out, get into arguments, get into what I probably would have called discourse, but was just arguing online with strangers who are committed to misunderstanding me. I don't want to do that. I want to focus my attention higher in places where it could at least make a difference, right? If I am unhappy with a situation here in Phoenix, I've only been to 2 city council meetings. Okay. Like, and I'm self-employed, so I have the time to go. If I'm unhappy with the direction of our country, then David Schweikert should fear my name on his caller ID. So that's what I want to do with my anger, because I have let it erupt indiscriminately, and that kind of lava is destructive. When it cools down, it might have formed something, right? An island, other land masses. I'm not sure. I don't know enough about geology to be making this analogy, but that's how I want to use mine.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally endorse that. And because I run into a lot of people who are furious about, as I said, things that they have no control over. And to me, there are things that you can, I mean, we don't have control over public officials, for example, but we can
Yeah.
influence them and they
Mhm.
can hear us if we are working locally. Like I'm never going to be getting I don't know, Mitch McConnell or Chuck Schumer or anybody on the phone, personally listening, carefully to my thoughts.
Yeah.
That is never going to happen. But I can use my voice locally with local officials. And so I really applaud you for taking on a city council meeting. And I urge anybody on this call to, go to city council.
There's another one tomorrow.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
happen very often.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are school board meetings, that people could be going to and speaking up. Censorship, book censorship, if that is something that you care about, for example, a school board or even your city council might have a library board. There are so many different ways that you can take that fury or that anger that you have that would otherwise be sort of impotent and do some good with it. So it's interesting. I'm fascinated by how do you become constructive out of anger?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
wonder
And
if any other thoughts on that?
I mean, I'll also say like my best work has been made out of anger, and
Ah,
my most popular work has been made out of anger. So that TED
wow.
Talk was literally just pure anger.
Yeah.
Um,
Tell me
my most
about that.
viral writing, anger,
Yeah. Talk
anger.
more about that,
So
Nora.
yeah, yeah.
What,
I gave a TED Talk that went quite viral, called "You Don't Move On from Grief." You don't move on from grief. You move forward with it. And I, I lost my husband as a widow. I had fallen in love again, gotten pregnant, maybe not in that order. And I I'd heard that from people, right? Like, oh, you're moving on. And sometimes it was like it was a dig, right? Like, oh, you're moving on too fast. Or, oh, when really, Aaron is the father of my firstborn child. Like, he is my first real love. I'm gonna cry.
Hmm.
The first person who really loved me.
Mhm.
Not the first person who said it, but the first person who really did love me. And like, you carry that with you. You carry that with you. And I think uh, that's something that I try to think about with everybody too, is that even people who I really probably hate or would think I hate, right? Like, everybody is carrying something with them that we don't know anything about. And all these experiences that we've gone through as a country, on top of whatever you've been through individually, these are things that are meant to stick with us. That does not mean it's always going to be the headline, does not mean it's always going to be the center of your world, but we're supposed to be changed by our experiences. That's what's supposed to happen. We're supposed to bring, some element of them with us. So, I just wrote that because I was really mad. So
That's wonderful. So there was a comment in the chat. It's like, how can I make Eli Crane fear my number on his caller ID?
yeah.
How do you make, keep trying, keep
Yeah.
trying. You can do it.
Keep trying. Also, I just tag them and stuff too. It's like, you know, this they 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 see what they're tagged in on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, they see what they're tagged in. They see what they're tagged in on threads. Like, they have people who are watching those things and, combing through the internet and finding them. And so it's a phone call. Great. That's awesome. But, like, put all your thoughts out there and tag them too, because that's all getting pulled in a social media report that whole team looks at every month. So there's a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways.
That is absolutely true. And we also recommend writing letters to the editor because they watch
Mm,
that too.
yeah. Yeah. Write something. Like, you have, this, I think we should bring back blogging. I really do. I think everybody should have a blog, but, like, whatever, like, if you have something to say, write it out, record it. Like, it has never been easier for people to make their own media. And I think more people should be confident doing that, because somewhere out there is a total idiot with no talent, not thinking twice before he does something. So you might as well try it. Okay.
So true. So anyway, none of these journeys is easy. And I mean, it's a continuing journey. And I think that that actually helps me a lot to realize, it's like I have another friend who is a widow, and she lost a number of friends after that
Yeah.
experience because they were frustrated. She was still grieving, and they felt, oh, you should be over that by now. And I really do love when you say
Yeah.
we don't get over our grief, we move forward with it. And I think it's that moving forward that helps, but you never do get over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are no quick fixes. There are no surefire tips. I mean, you've shared some things that help you, and I have some things that help me. I call them, it's a talisman, you know,
Mm,
it's something that I can return to when I have a certain feeling of either sorrow or hesitancy or,
yeah.
something like that. So um, sometimes you just find those words or that thought or feeling that is something I can return to when I feel, insecure. So there are no, but each of us sort of has to find that individually. I don't think there's one cure-all
Yeah.
anybody could use.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these days, I mean, we're just trying everything we can think of to keep people hopeful, to keep them
Yeah.
looking toward the future and saying, the future is not written. I get to write the future. And
Yeah. And also, it's like, I keep thinking this is probably the first year, which this might embarrass some people, like secondhand embarrassment, and that's okay. That's my service to you. this is the first year of my life where I was driving one day and I thought, I'm the adult. Like, I'm the adult. Like, I'm the adult. Like, we are the adults. And when I feel like, and I really do think the Start Making Sense book is going to help so many people, I'm telling you, because we are living right now, like in the absurd, in this, sort of alternate reality. This cannot be real. This does not line up with our expectations. And like, what can we do to sort of ground ourselves? And one of those things is nostalgia. One of those things is connection, calling someone, seeing somebody, like taking some kind of action. When I feel a specific kind of way, I try to take an action that is the opposite thing. If I feel cheated, I try to be generous with somebody, like wildly generous that day for no reason, like out of the blue, so no one's expecting it. If I feel extremely lonely, I try to make somebody else feel seen. So whatever you are sort of facing and feeling like overwhelmed with, think of like one small action that you can do to sort of reverse that and and make like a small dent in like your immediate world. So um and that can be like, that can be so small. It can be so small, but I have friends who like to do the same thing too. And so maybe every um like, I don't know, like I'm stuttering. Hopefully you edit this, Kathy. But
You don't edit.
but like, oh great. Okay.
Sorry.
Um but it's like, if there's like some small thing that you can do for like the world around you, you're worried about like censorship, you like join the library board, whatever that is, or like make a donation to the library, whatever it is, like taking an action that is directly the opposite of how you are feeling right now. That is what helps me, and I have like a little note above my desk to remind me to do that.
Hmm. That's great. So I can't believe it. We are at time. So, are there any last words of wisdom, encouragement, advice, anything that you would like to leave us with?
Yeah, I'm reading some like the very, very smart comments. Like, these are such wonderful people. So I look forward to just like attending one of these as just like a attendee next time. But I I'm going to leave you with this, which is when my husband Aaron was dying of brain cancer, he kept telling me it's going to be okay. And I kept saying to myself, like, that's the morphine talking, that's the brain tumor talking. Like, obviously, it's not going to be okay. You're dying. You're 35 years old. I'm going to be, an alone mom, like with a toddler, and I'm not the fun parent. So this is not going to be okay. And I believe in my heart that he was beautifully vague for a reason, because there are so many things that are not going to be okay. He never said what it was. He said it's going to be okay, but he did not say what it was. So every day I try to figure out what that it is. And if I cannot see it, I try to make it. So that is my final thought. Like, it's going to be okay. That is not a tacit blanket approval of the many not okay things happening in the world. That is like an action item for us to like find the okay thing or to be the okay thing.
Mhm. That is wonderful. And I am really looking forward to going back and reading the chat because we do have the most wonderful audience anywhere. And there is a huge amount of appreciation for you. I knew that the people that follow CEBV need this wisdom. They need it. And I just had a conviction from the bottom of my heart that we needed this conversation. So, Nora, I cannot thank you enough. This
Thank
is,
you for having me. I really am honored. And Kathy, what a cool lady you are. Like, I
oh,
truly, like, I hope I grow up to be like you. Like,
oh, thank you.
so
Well,
amazing.
it's like sometimes I see people and I say, well, that's just an old guy, and it's like, oh, well, I guess I'm pretty old too.
Isn't
So
it
we're
weird?
all
I'm like,
sort of,
but I'm like, in my mind, I'm 27. So it's
yeah.
very weird to me to be
Mhm.
is 42 because I'm 27. So
I think we all have that age that we think
yeah,
about.
yeah.
So,
My mom is 40. We're peers.
yeah.
Okay. Like,
Oh, well, I'm so glad your mom joined us for this conversation. So, thank you so much, Nora. And
thank you.
this has meant so much to me, and I know for our people as well. So,
Thank you guys. I'm really honored to have an hour of your night. I really do appreciate it.
okay. Good night, everyone.